Everybody, and welcome to this week's Facebook Live. This morning, going back to the roots, and the roots of the video. The roots of the blog and the videos are always about, building awareness, giving people basic information. Because I didn't have that. I did not have that many decades ago when my own child was diagnosed with a specific disability, and didn't know where to turn. Was just given a diagnosis, off you go, what do you do? So I don't want people to have that. I don't want people to be like that, and that's why I started giving out the information. But it is only information. It shouldn't be, it should never replace any professional advice that you receive about yourself or your child. It's a starting point, really. And I try as much as possible to link to national services in Ireland, because that's where I'm based. Now, there usually are national services, national organisations, and in this case it will be Epilepsy Ireland, to go and have a look at their website, because they have a vast array of information. In fact, this topic, even if you're not in Ireland, I really have to recommend their website, Epilepsy Ireland, because they are brilliant. The website is full of information. So even if you're not in Ireland, it is a great informational website to go and have a look at. Sorry, and then go and link in with a national organisation, wherever you're living. So let's get started. What is epilepsy? There's about 40,000 people approximately affected by epilepsy in Ireland. It is a neurological condition that causes seizures. We also know that it affects both men and women, or male and females, of all ages. Usually, though, we will see it starting in either childhood or in the elderly. And the one thing you've got to remember here, if somebody has a one-off seizure, it doesn't mean that they will go on to develop epilepsy. So, what with anything, particularly this condition, even if it's only a one-off seizure, please seek professional help. I have to stress this. Please, please, please reach out to your GP, your main doctor. If it's a child, the child's pediatrician, please reach out and talk to them. They are the best to advise you here. They will be able to run all the tests, all the medical tests, and that's what you're going to need here. So, symptoms. There's a lot more detail in the blog, and even that's only the tip of the iceberg with this one. I tried to kind of condense things down. So do go and check that out over at www.deborahbyrnepsychologyservices.com. Seizures are generally classified by the medical profession into different types. There's unknown onset seizures, there's focal seizures, and there's generalized seizures. And that just means that, with unknown onset seizures, they don't know, where it occurred, where it started, basically. So that's unknown. Generally, with that one, though, as they, if the person has more and more seizures, they get to know the person's particular type of seizures more and more, and then they can be reclassified into either focal or generalized. With focal seizures, that's normally caused by abnormal activity in one area of the brain, and then that focal seizures are actually categorized down again into two more types. Focal seizures with loss of consciousness, and focal seizures with impaired awareness. It gets very complicated, as you can see. So you really need to go and talk to the doctor, ask them, what type of seizure is my child having, or what type of seizure do I have? And get down to the nitty gritty. With generalized seizures, which is another type, it involves all areas of the brain, and that actually has 6 subtypes. Again, getting very complicated, but not You might need all of that information. What you're going to need there with those symptoms or those types is that you're going to need to know, okay, what type do I have? How is it affecting me? Am I triggered by anything? And you can then bring it down to you specifically or your child specifically, and you don't have to worry about the other subtypes. Okay, so just try and get the right information, and that's vital. So the causes of epilepsy, basically what they're saying is, half of those affected by epilepsy, they actually don't know the cause. So it's half they don't know the cause. With the other half, approximately the other half, they reckon that there's a lot of factors that could be contributing to the epilepsy. So they can be genetic. You've heard me talk about awareness of other disabilities before. Genetic usually comes up there. A head trauma. So an acquired brain injury, if you think about that, and I've talked about acquired brain injuries before, dementia, strokes, other vascular diseases, brain abnormalities, an infection, a prenatal injury, or a developmental disorder. So it could be in connection with something else that your child or you have. So we have to be aware of that. So what can trigger then? Well, as I said, you need to know maybe what does trigger my epilepsy. So there can be a variety of things that can trigger epilepsy. I suppose the flashing lights would be one that we're all very familiar with. But that's just one thing. It could be stress. If the person is very stressed, a lack of sleep, fever. I think any parent, if they've ever had a child with a fever, is one thing the doctor goes very high. It's something we're aware of as parents that, could trigger a seizure. Low blood sugar, caffeine, alcohol, drugs, nicotine, missed medication. So these are all things that would have to be investigated, along with my type of disability or my child's type of disability. What the specific symptoms for that type for my child is like, and then what's the triggers, what's likely to trigger a seizure. So these are things you really need to know for yourself, if it's you, or if it is if it's a loved one. So how is it diagnosed? How is epilepsy diagnosed? Not everybody is diagnosed on their first seizure. Usually not, in fact. Not everybody, in fact, is brought to A&E on their first seizure. So usually it'll be the GP or the main doctor will refer you to a neurologist. And then they're going to want to run multiple tests there. They're going to want an EEG, they're going to want a brain scan, they're going to want blood tests. They're going to also want the GP to have ruled out other things. So, the neurologist is going to need as much detail about the seizure as possible. So it's handy if you can write down a few things before you actually go for a visit. And this is the same with any condition. When you're going for an investigation to see, is this a possibility for you, is to write down as much as you can remember, and also to bring somebody with you. Even if you are a parent, and you're going with your child, to bring somebody else with you if possible, because they can take notes, and they can ask questions maybe because you're not thinking straight. So write down as much as you can remember about the seizures, when those seizures occurred, what the person was doing, what you were doing, what the child was doing. If you can get the child to describe how they felt. Not always possible with children, how they felt before, during and afterwards, with the seizure. And as I said, bring somebody with you, and that's very important. It's also important if you're an adult and you are waiting to see the neurologist or waiting for a diagnosis, that you use some common sense here, because it could be time between you getting your GP to refer you on and you actually going to get your diagnosis and get all the tests done and everything else. So, again, take medical advice here, but use common sense too. So, avoiding putting others in danger, putting yourself in danger. So, driving, swimming, maybe operating machinery and things like that. But your doctor, your GP is going to be able to advise you on that. But it's also common sense sometimes. The treatment for epilepsy, that's going to be discussed between you and your neurologist, your specialist team, your consultant. They're going to discuss the best options for treatment for you or your child. And the idea around treatment is it's aimed at reducing the number of seizures or actually stopping them. That's what they're trying to do there. Some people may require treatment for life. It'll depend, again, it's going to depend on types and triggers and all sorts there. And then others will find that once the seizures have stopped, the specialist is going to say to you, okay, you can now stop the treatment. We'll be stopping the treatment. The thing I would say to you there is never, ever, ever stop any sort of treatment that you're receiving until you actually consult your doctor, and consult your specialist first. So some options that they have with epilepsy are medication, anti-epileptic drugs, surgery. There's also a diet that they might try, and then of course if you know your triggers, you either avoid them, or if it's the likes of low blood sugar or lack of sleep and things like that you take care of those. You make sure you don't get a lack of sleep, and don't let your blood sugars drop and things like that. So knowing your triggers and treat accordingly, either avoiding them or taking care of them. Some self-help, there is self-help you can do here for yourself. Basically it does revolve around you getting your diagnosis, reaching out for help, knowing the type, because as I said at the start, there are different types of epilepsy. Knowing your type, whatever subtype you're in, and knowing your triggers, that's going to be key to doing some self-help here. Joining a support group or national organisation like Epilepsy Ireland is going to be really vital, because they have lots more information. They will know, help you get to know your rights and entitlements. They're going to have some vital supports there and training, that they can give you as a parent and as a person with epilepsy. So do reach out to them. Making sure too that you're reaching out to your GP for help or your specialist for help. Make sure that you're involved in the planning of your own treatment, or if it's your child, that you're the one involved, and every step of what's going on with your child in terms of their treatment. The other thing is, for adults in particular, is to reduce your stress, because stress, we know stress is a trigger here. So taking that time for relaxation, doing things that you find relaxing, that can reduce your stress, self-care, this is going to be really vital. Sticking to a regular routine as well, so having meals at regular times, making sure you're getting enough sleep. Again, two things that are triggers, so we want to be making sure that they're there. We want to make sure we're getting enough sleep and we're keeping our blood sugar on an even keel there. And of course, they're all going to help with your overall physical and mental health as well once you're getting them. The other thing, I'd say to you, if you need it, go to counselling. Even if it is your child, you need support too. It can be quite a shock, and I can tell you that for a fact, when you get a diagnosis for your child. So going and reaching out for help, just to help you adjust and cope with the situation. until you make that transition into getting all the information you need. The other thing for parents specifically is you have to be your child's advocate here. So you may need to help educate the teachers and others about epilepsy. And in particular, you need to understand your child's type of epilepsy, any triggers, and what to do in a seizure. And you may need to, build that awareness in the teachers that they're meeting. So asking the schools to link in with, the likes of Epilepsy Ireland, the national body for this, and asking them to run, seizure awareness training for their staff is vital. It really is vital. I think everybody should have this training. And Ireland, the Irish group, national body, does run trainings for this. So go and have a look. At that. They have some leaflets too. You can download there. I really thought this website was brilliant with the amount of information they have. There's a link there to in the blog for being seizure aware. So it's down towards the end of the page. You can click on that and that'll bring you exactly to the page of being seizure aware if you just want to read that or get the booklets on that there for yourself. The other thing I would say for parents in particular, any child that has a diagnosis can suffer greatly with their self-esteem. Children with epilepsy are no different. Particularly teens, it can be quite embarrassing, or they can feel embarrassed if they have a seizure in public, if they were to have one in school or that. So, supporting your child, their personal interests, their friendships, helping them to support their self-esteem, because they can become very socially withdrawn. There's also a higher risk of them developing depression and anxiety. So helping them manage their self-esteem can reduce these risks. And I've done a video on boosting children's self-esteem, their self-confidence. So do check that out and have a think about how you can do it. They're not unusual. This is quite common, in fact, that we find depression can be quite high in teens and young adults who have a disability. So we really need to be targeting their mental health and reducing those risks. I also have other videos and blogs that you might be interested in as a parent. One is dealing with guilt as a special needs parent. You might find that interesting. Choosing a school if your child has other conditions as well as epilepsy, and then accessing services in third level as well. And I've a lot of other videos on disabilities, so if they have got a co-condition, you might be interested in having a look at that. And as I said, as a parent, you really need to be supporting your own mental health here. It is hard to come to terms with a diagnosis, and I would really, really strongly advise you to reach out, but also to create a support system around yourself and your family. And I've talked about that, that everybody, it doesn't matter who you are in the world, you need a strong, positive support system around you that provide, tangible, informational, emotional and social support. We all need that. But in particular, as a parent of a child with epilepsy, you need that, because that's going to be vital for you. It's going to be invaluable, and part of that support is reaching out to a national body. They can be so good. I found when I reached out that they really had a wealth of knowledge there. They had it was Dyslexia Ireland I reached out to first, and they had a parent liaison officer, and she was brilliant. She had such an amount. She was a parent herself who had a wealth of information, and then I got talking to more parents, and that's what you need. Talk to other parents of children who have epilepsy. It will really give you all give you all the information you need there. They're a wealth of information and experience. And that's what you need as well. Somebody who's a little bit ahead of you in the game that can give you that information. So the link is in the blog. It's www.epilepsy.ie for the Irish one. I do give a link out to the NHS in the UK, so people can go there and have a look at that. But the link I give you is one for living with epilepsy, and that links out to I think there's 2 other organisations in the UK that help with people who have epilepsy. So do have a look and reach out there. So that's it. That's it for this week. If you have any questions, I'm always happy, as I say to my mum's group, I'm always happy to answer them. Come and talk to me. And reach out. Please reach out if you need help. It's vital. There won't be a Facebook Live next week. I'll just say that now. Because this weekend is actually bank holiday weekend, so I'm taking Monday off. So there won't be a blog. And I will talk to you all again in 2 weeks. And thank you all for watching.